What's good, y'all? We're back at it with another video recording. And, again, we're doing it horizontal. You know what I'm saying? We're not doing it vertical or whatever. We're going horizontal with the video recording. But this video recording is going to be on traditionalism in the 21st century, how it relates to people now, and we're going to have a discussion about a discussion that I had actually with my mom in the kitchen. So I'm in the kitchen, and me and my mom were just talking about what I got going on or whatever. And she says, you really are better off than a lot of the dudes your age, because a lot of the dudes your age aren't really doing nothing. And she clarified that to me, and I was really just more so talking to her about the fact that it feels like I'm not getting the things that I need done fast. I'm not really accomplishing things as fast as I want to accomplish them. And I was sort of explaining how time and everything is a lot more accelerated now for my generation compared to hers, yada yada yada. But in the middle of all that, I was thinking about like nausea or whatever. If y'all are familiar with Sartre, Jean-Paul Sartre or whatever, like with the nausea of everyday life. And I was thinking about how that relates to traditionalism and why people crave traditionalism, and how the traditionalism that we're seeing right now doesn't really hit the mark. It hits the mark, but it doesn't really go all the way. And I know why. I read the Vola, so I kind of can understand why, but other people don't really know why. So what is traditionalism, right? So traditionalism is pretty much based upon the fact that throughout the spiritual tradition of mankind, there are certain principles that are just true no matter what happens, no matter what, right? And within a system, these principles and these values, whenever they're upheld, the society functions well, right? That's what traditionalism essentially is. It's that the basis of every society is spiritual in nature. It's based upon spiritual ideas. It's based upon eternal ideas, right? So that's traditionalism in its simplest sense. Now, the thing with traditionalism now is that you have a lot of traditionalism based upon, Western values, religious values, this, that, and the third. And the reason why that doesn't work is because postmodernity is a thing. And postmodernity, no matter how many people hate postmodernity and the thinkers and the philosophers that came out of postmodernity was a necessary movement in the West, in the world, because it exposed the weak structures that we were living under, right? A lot of people talk about rebuilding the family. Well, if the family structure doesn't work, then there's no real reason to rebuild it, because it's just going to fall apart again. People talk about the religions and all that other sorts of stuff. Well, if the religious power and the religious vigor that is within these institutions isn't strong, then they're not strong. They're just going to break apart. If something can break, if something can destabilize and just crumble, it's not eternal, and it's not really what should be chased in a traditionalist standpoint. What should be chased in a traditionalist standpoint is something, just simple, like God. And I don't use God to say a person. I'm saying God as um, I'm using God to say like an energy and experience and the construct behind reality that is just true. That's just true no matter what. That's really what, as a traditionalist, you are trying to find. And when you find it, you're trying to, um, you know, express that in the world, in reality. It's very much akin to the Neoplatonists. The Neoplatonists, they do two things. They do theurgy, they do God work, where they're, trying to uncover these gods, gain knowledge of these gods through rituals. And then they have thaumaturgy, where they use the energies of these gods in order to enact changes around them, right? So you got theurgy and thaumaturgy. And for traditionalism, you're doing that, but you're doing that um, in the form of the society. Um, the society is living in a way to sort of live in connection with God, and also they're living out lives to, do actions and do things in their life to show evidence of God. And, like I said, again, I'm using God loose, in a very loose way. You know what I'm saying? Like you can say like source, you can say the one, you can use whatever word, you want to use. But I think a lot of people can sort of get at what I mean when I use the word God in a traditionalist and esoteric sense. Now, again, the thing with traditionalism in, the world now is that it's more so to uphold modernity and less to find ideas, to find these, platonic gods that can transcend us out of the mundaneness of everyday life. It's more so to just uphold, modern constructs, like I said, the nuclear family, blood. Blood is one. Like when we think about race and blood, like I can understand why people have there's an importance on race and blood. And of course, our racial identities are very important. But our racial identities are not superior to our identities as spiritual beings. And I think the reason why, we're sort of attached still to all of these modern objects, all these modern constructs, is because our society really has not had a lot of time our society really has not had like an existential crisis. It's having the existential crisis now, but it hasn't had it in the past, really. And when it has had it in the past, when they had it, again, we're talking about the boomer generation. When they had it, instead of, being in it and trying to find a way to evolve out of it, they just went and started fucking each other and, doing drugs and being hippies and this, that, and the third. But now, as Gen Z, we're back in the existential crisis, and you have people sort of doing the same thing. Like you got the looks maxers, you have, again, like the whole trad movement. You have people being extremists on the political sides of the spectrum. You have all this sort of stuff, but you don't really have, very few people are really starting to ask the question of what's really important. What is really important? And, for what is important to me how far am I really willing to take what is important in my life? Because if it's really important and if it's really sacred, then it's something that, you know, I myself am willing to sacrifice for. I'm willing to sacrifice myself for this thing. And that's the thing with, like, existentialism versus traditionalism. With the existential movement, which is a very necessary one, you're sacrificing all modern conceptions of your life and your identity in order to uncover a meaning and a purpose. When you make the traditionalist movement, you're going a step further. You're sacrificing, even though you've uncovered this meaning and its purpose, you believe that there's something higher dictating this meaning and its purpose. And you're willing to sacrifice your own identity and your own autonomy in order to enact this higher will that is calling you. Like, very similar to, like with the holy guardian angel and one's true will or whatever. Like, when you're following, like, your true will, it's just something that has to happen. Like, the life that you live in connection with your true will is a life that has to be lived. Like, there's nothing that I can do about it. This is just who I am. It's not me creating a meaning. It's not me creating a purpose. It's just me being me. It's just me being the truest form of me as a person. It's an evident truth. It's just manifested. It can't be. It's something that can't be disproven. And when it comes to that individual spiritual journey, within traditionalism, you're trying to do that on a societal front. You're trying to have it to where truth is being displayed within the society. That's why you have all the castes. Everybody's truth is not to be a leader. Everybody's truth is not to be a merchant. Everybody's truth is not to be an aristocrat. Everybody's truth is not to be the worker. But the society is created in a way to where everybody can find their truth in whatever area and whatever caste is within the society, is within the system. But of course, since we're living out predominantly spiritual lives, the authority within the society is of a spiritual, nature. It's a spiritual authority. It's the authority of, the priest king, the philosopher king, whatever you want to call him. So that's what traditionalism hopefully will be. It will be where people are able to live lives not just for the sake of being able to live to the next day. Living to the next day gets boring. Living to the next day gets repetitive really fast. Just self-gratifying, surviving every day. Like, that's not, like, it can only get you so far. It becomes boring very fast. Like, living for desires and living for self-enjoyment becomes boring very fast, and your body knows that it becomes boring very fast because it makes it to where you have to chase more potent stimuluses to satisfy those desires whenever you do accomplish them. So your body knows that it's a stupid game, Yet these are, the paths that, modern life deems as rational for us people. And I had read a book. I read Hines' book on meta-modernism. And, that's really what I'm talking about here, where, like, it's a future where, some meta-modern thinkers, for them, like, a good future is a future where everybody is living a fulfilled life. living a life that's fulfilling and complete and all this other sorts of stuff. Me, I don't want, I want a life that's fulfilling, but I don't just want a life that is based around crossing off boxes on a checklist. You know what I'm saying? I want to live a life where I feel like I lived the life that I was supposed to. I want to live a life that feels as if it was supposed to be lived. Not a life that is based around, again, check boxes and this, that, and the third, you know. And this is what I guess you can say traditionalism is going to be, I guess, in the future. It's going to be a whole bunch of people wanting to live a life based around their truth, based around what they feel God calls them to do. And of course, like I said, I'm using it loosely. Versus people that view, life being a series of check boxes. You have to be mentally healthy. You have to be this sort of healthy. You have to do this. You have to do that. Yada 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 yada. It's gonna be that, and then you're gonna have the people that are the I guess you can say dopamine. I don't know what to call them, like libidinal accelerationists. Where they just are on some I'll say fail type of time, and I can understand those people. Because life is boring, so you want to find things that libidinally stimulate you because life is boring. But like I said, your body gets very nullified. You have to chase, more potent highs. And that's why a lot of times, they crave that singularity. They crave that high that will finally be able to destroy them. But again, for me, I wish to crave an experience that takes me out of myself to see the truth of who I really am. But I don't want to destroy myself, because at the end of the day, my existence being here, has to be carried out. It doesn't matter if I was put here by chance or accident. I'm put here, and I'm guided by physics, spirituality. Like, I'm guided by physics, spirit, matter, whatever you want to call it. I'm guided by something, and I want to live that out. You feel me? So anyways, I guess this video, I'm gonna title it like my take on traditionalism in the 21st century, whatever. But anyways, it's your boy Jalen signing out. Peace.